publishers accept the open access paradigm, sounds at first sight paradox, but of course they do. And will public institutions, governments, states, will they be willing to pay for commercial open access? Should they? Should they pay for commercial? Is it market-oriented, in line with market principles? Yes, but there will be a but. And will open access indeed become the default publishing also for commercial publishing in the foreseeable future? Yes, also a but. And is there still a need for copyright regulation when open access becomes the general accepted norm? Also, yes, but. So these are the questions. Of course, I have answered the question, so I can finish my talk because every questions are answered, but I think you will expect a little bit more. So the questions are commons-based information markets, and you probably don't know what commons-based information markets are, and so we'll go explain that a little bit more in detail. Will there be a means both for innovation in the economy and for progress in science? By the way, you know, this is the purpose of copyright, to further progress in science and the useful arts, and further the development of economy, which is written in the American Constitution. Yes, I think it is a means for innovation. And the last question is, can knowledge economy, commercial economy, and knowledge ecology, can they be compatible? Yes, but here also a but. So let's go to different kinds of markets. Access to and use of knowledge and information. It can be done. How can access to knowledge and information and the use of knowledge and information, how can that be used? First, of course, the traditional markets, proprietary, private, commercial, information markets. These are the existing markets, and this is what I call the knowledge economy. On the other hand, they are more or less open, public, common-based information market, and I call these knowledge ecologies. And the question is, are they compatible? We all are quite aware, there was a long debate 10, 15 years ago, whether economy and ecology would be compatible. That is common sense right now. Everybody thinks the more economy accept ecological principles, the more they can keep on the market. But the question is whether knowledge economy, private industry, and knowledge ecology can be compatible. And my hypothesis is that knowledge ecology does not object to the commercial use of knowledge, but only when these commercial publishing models are only acceptable when they acknowledge the status of knowledge as a commons. And this is a concept I have to explain what it is. Let's go, what I mean, towards a commons-based understanding. I pick up a distinction between these commons concept and the common pool resources. This is very common, this distinction in the common literature in general. You see the difference. Common pools are resources which are available, such as the common heritage of nature, such as the water, the air. This is available by nature. Or we have common heritage of social life, public spaces, the law, libraries, and many other things. And of course, we have the common heritage of cultural creativity. And this is, of course, in the center of my talk, which means the arts and knowledge and information, mainly in the context of science and education. So this is a distinction, and the challenge is how to turn common pool resources, which are available and many times in history were misused. So like the fish in the ocean, these are the common pool resources. They have been misused, overfished. Our air was polluted in the 19th, 20th century by misusing it. And so it depends how to turn common pool resources, which are available, to useful commons. And I use this model. This is kind of a complicated picture, but I hope you will understand what it is, and I need it for the rest of my paper. So knowledge resources, I I don't talk about fish and I don't talk about water and air and all these things. I talk about knowledge and information. This is an example of common pool resources. You can see it here in this cloud. These are the resources, and they need some kind of institutionalization to allow access to these resources. The same with water. Water is there, but we need some form of institutionalization to access and use them. But what do I mean with institutionalization? These are guided by some principles, some values, and by some procedures. To explain what I mean, you need some procedures to make these knowledge resources available, maybe by communication. Classic example, fish grounds in the ocean, so the fishermen agree this year you can fish this part and the other part, they communicate this, or more formal, some commitments, contracts, rules, law can guide these procedures, control mechanism, even sanctions. On the other hand, they have some principles and values who guide the use and the access to information. On the left side, we consider knowledge and information as a private good, either by the authors or by the publishers who have gained the right of the authors by contract as using rights. That's sometimes called the enclosure of the mind. Profitability, scarce resource. And this is also regulated by contracts. This ends up, and it's also protected by copyright. And you see the error there, these principles and these procedures, and this ends up in what I have called the knowledge economy, because the principles and values are private, profitable, they make knowledge a scarce resource because people think only making them a scarce resource is the only chance to stay on the market. On the other hand, we have different values. Sharing knowledge, free use, inclusion, it's owned by everyone. Sustainability is not only for our generation but also for future generation, leave access open. And there are some values like commitments, procedures like Creative Commons, you know that, or open access, also in principle, Berlin Declaration, that you can use the information, make it freely available. Those are some kind of procedures. And then this error goes in a different direction. These are common-based information markets, and this is what I call knowledge ecology. So there are always two kinds of direction. Knowledge and information is there, but these are not what some people think res nullius, which everybody can use for whatever purpose they want. The same what we have done with the air and the fish and the ocean, they consider res nullius, whatever nobody owns. But my understanding is here that these resources need some rules and values to turn them into usable goods, usable commons. So that's just a transformation from resources into commons and the access and use of information. And it's not yet decided in the future. We have chosen the left way, called the commercialization of knowledge, has ended in a kind of trade industry, a commercial industry, but we still have the chance, and the last couple of years is more and more latent, that an alternative to these commercial markets. Okay, is it our choice, or is it dominated by other principles? So let's first give some information on the left side. This is the knowledge economy part, and I give you only some data. I mean, I can probably all know you're scientists as well, and I go very briefly. It's a very still amazing story. There are about 10,000 publishers in the world, and about 100,000 people work there. The science, technology, and medicine book market is about worth of 5 billion. That means billion American dollars. E-books about already 70%, rapidly increasing. There are about 30,000 peer-reviewed journals on the market. About 2.5 million articles are produced, and more than 50 million articles are subject to retrieval, are available, online available, and most of them, all of them are available online. Revenues about 10 billion in 2013. A broader market with software and publishing market is more than $25 billion. So it's still a very powerful and profitable market, and it's now challenge to publishers to create new solutions to research data, not only publishing text, but data, and that's the problem of text and data mining as a big business in science. So, knowledge economy, that's a private commercial exploitation of knowledge and information. It's distributed, sold, and licensed on global information market. The science markets are global market. And these services and goods are protected by copyright and considered private intellectual property. Private property. And the private property means that people can be excluded from what was originally considered a common pool resource. And that's the case. You can be excluded by technical means, by means of money, you don't have money to buy the products, and many other restrictions because it's a private good. It's still a very powerful and profitable market, and this market, this is the interesting thing, the products, the original products, are produced by a publicly financed institution mostly, and by people who get their money from the state government or other institutions. But the markets, they are willing, the institutions are willing to support these private models who get their products, the original products, for free mostly, at least when it comes to journal articles. I would guess about 99% of all the articles, the authors don't get any money. Some exception in law, some people get some money there. For example, the German libraries spend about 600 million euros per year for commercial publications. Or there is recently a contract between a state in Germany, Baden-Württemberg. They're spending about give a couple of million euros to the Springer company, Springer journals, that all the 51 academic institutions can use all of these almost 2,000 Springer journals for free. I mean, they pay the flat rate, so the Baden-Württemberg state will finance the Springer company so that the scientists in Germany will have access to it. Or even more, there's recently the contract in Elsevier. Elsevier is the leading publishing company in the world, and with the French Institut Couperin et Agence Bibliographique, they give about 172 million euros for these commercial, sometimes we call them closed access journals, not open access journals, so they can use these journals from Elsevier. There are also a couple of thousand journals between 2014 and 2018 for $122 million. So the public institutions are willing to spend a lot of money for these closed access journals, the traditional commercial journals. But the situation has changed. It's still a very profitable market, but more and more people, I think it's worldwide, and I think it is in Serbia as well, that more and more people claim that the public should have the right to freely access and use scientific work produced in public environments and supported by public money. There are more and more initiatives that it is no longer fair and not acceptable that we have to pay back, to all the institutions which get the original products for free, more or less. This book's a little bit different, but journals, they get it for free. So there's a real movement that is no longer accepted. And also more and more scientists, there's almost every week is a new resolution that scientists protest against the publishing policy of these major companies like Elsevier, Springer, and whatever they are. So they take away all the users' rights. And I don't know in which journals you publish, but mostly you sign a contract to give up all your user rights. You even cannot publish your own article on your own website because you have given up all your rights. These are the normal contracts that most of the scientists do. Hope that will change. I don't do it. Since many years, I give them only simple publishing rights and keep all the rights with me and put all my articles and books on the internet for free. But most of the science, I don't know what contracts you sign, but most of the scientists give it away. But more and more scientists won't accept that anymore, get frustrated about these business models, and they choose what is available right now, open access journals which are not commercial journals, and where the access is free, and where mostly the authors keep their copyrights. They can do it in both ways. Probably you know that open access can be done in the golden way. That means publish in the original open access journal. Or the other way, it's open access green. That means you keep the right for a second publication. You publish your article in a commercial journal and still keep the right to keep it on your own website or give it in the institutional repository of your library or whatever it is. So these are two of the ways. You probably know these two ways what it is. So this is the right side of the original model. This is a model of the knowledge ecology, and you see in the next figure it's also becoming a real alternative to traditional commercial publishing that is called the open access-based information markets, which are a kind of institutionalization of knowledge and information as common pool resources to turn them into a commons good, freely acceptable, usable, and without paying any money for that. There's into the website the directory of open access journals. And you can see there are a dramatic increase. I give some figures from 2011. There are 7,000 journals, and right now, in March 2015, about more than 10,000 journals are open access in the golden way, are publicly available. So since 2001, approximately every day, 4 journals, every day in the world, and not only in industrialized countries. There are many in Brazil and Asia. But of course, the majority are more and more in Western countries. But compared to these 50 million articles which are commercially available, it's still only about 4% of all these. But these are the only recent one, because open access only exists since a couple of years. And the 50 million commercial articles maybe 20 years, 30, 40 years way back. And there's also a directory for books. And there are already a couple of peer-reviewed books from about 107 publishers who give their books away for free. This is an interesting business model. I don't want to go too much in details, but it happened with me as well with my last book. I could put it on for free on my website, but still the printed version was the best sold book in the whole series. So some publishers took the online version, it was a book of about 600 pages, who in the world would print that, and they took it an incentive to buy the book. So that's, but I don't want to go too much in detail with the books and more of these journals. And so more and more publishers accept the open access paradigm and see their future in open access publishing, which at the first glance seems to be a paradox. Open access, you don't get any money. The authors pay. Once they have paid, then it's free. And they do it in both ways, in the golden and the green way, and this is more or less enforced. Enforced by markets. The markets take over. There are more and more open access journals on the market, which is maybe even more important by moral behavior. I mentioned that more and more scientists don't accept that anymore, that they give away their articles, their products, and have to rebuy it again, or their libraries have to rebuy it again. So the moral behavior goes more and more in the direction of free access. And more and more users, NGOs, science organizations are in favor of open access model. Even the research funding organizations support open access model. So in many organizations, I'll give an example pretty soon, you're only allowed to get some funding money if you accept or you're willing to publish your article. You can publish it commercially, but you have to publish it as a second publication within a time, maybe 6 months. Otherwise, you don't get any money. And even more, there's still more and more political commitment. I don't know really the reason why there is a political commitment towards open access. I guess they believe that there is some way of saving some money, because they spend all these million and billion money for the funding and for the libraries, and whether it's still publicly available, maybe they save a lot of money. Give some example of what it is, and maybe publishers agree more to the green market. There's also a directive, Sherpa Romeo, shows all the publishing companies what their policy is, under which conditions they allow authors to publish their materials in the green way. So actually right now already about 80% of all published articles could be open access available if every scientist would accept the open access green. Most scientists don't do it. They're only interested in having their articles published in a commercial journal, and then it's published and they're no longer interested, although sometimes they have the right, even by the publishers, to do that within, they call it an embargo time, a delay time, between 6 and 8 months. In reality, it's only about 30%, so that's kind of a shame of scientists there have the rights. It's not total rights, but they could put their articles as a second publication in the green mode on their website, but many of them are not really interested, or they don't trust it. But this might change. The golden market is even more interesting. Springer has bought some of the leading open access journal series, and they accept more and more articles in the open access mode. At the beginning, only half of it where the authors were willing to pay some money and the rest were commercial, but now Springer opens more and more original open access journals. How come? With very interesting features, the same features like the traditional commercial journals, and so that you may look at the Springer Open website. They invite authors how to do that, how that can be done, and how they profit from that. So there's one of the leading publishers, Elsevier, Thomson, Springer. These are the big leaders in the market. I mentioned public foundation. The leading company was NIH, the National Institute of Health in America. That's they only give money to when they requires that scientists to submit final peer-reviewed journal manuscript from NIH fund within at least 12 months after publication. So that's the biggest funding organization of the world, NIH, and all the scientists, when they want to get some funding money, they have to agree that they have to publish it. Private foundation is even easier. The Wellcome Trust is one of the English funding society. They even introduce sanctions for non-compliance with open access, and they should publish it under a Creative Commons license, and they have to publish it within half a year in a journal or directly in an open access journal. In Europe, probably you know, there's a new program, Horizon 2020. They favored both models, the green and the golden model, as valid approaches to achieve open access. And all projects will be requested to immediately deposit an electronic version of their publication's final version into an archive in a machine-readable form. So open access will be highly accepted by a political institution as well. So that's more or less a gold model. And you can give it more and more examples. In England, the whole scientific publication will be forced to be publicly available in an open access mode. And the interesting question now is who pays for all that? That the publishers accept the open access? Who pays for it? And this is really the interesting question, what it is. Obviously, the public is willing to accept that the public has to finance commercial institutions. What they have done for centuries, to give the money to the libraries, and the libraries give free access to the users, more or less. In the electronic environment, it's not that easy. Now they seem to be willing to give to commercial publishers, commercial organizations, public money to allow them as a kind of subsidy. And it's done in many different ways. Maybe the publishers ask for an APC, article processing charge, so the author has to pay whether his article should be published in an open access journal. The average would be $2,000 per article. And who would be willing? I ask you, would you be willing to have your article in an open access journal when you would have to pay $2,000 for an article? Probably not. But mostly these are the institutions who would pay that. Or these APCs, articles, are paid by foundations or by grants, by sponsorship, or the library pays for it. An example, University of Göttingen in Germany made a contract with Springer as well, and they spend a flat rate and allows all their scientists to publish in open access journal. And the University of Göttingen pays flat rate to Springer, public finance library, and they have to pay it from the library or from their research budget. Or there are some example, like in UK, a nationwide flat rate, in Germany also, a flat rate. Or there's a network of physics. They collect money from all the different members in Europe and worldwide. They gather the money and then give it to the publishers so they can publish all the articles in their open access journal. Nationwide flat rate, I mentioned that already. And also there are individual agreements between smaller publishers and whatever institution they want to make contracts. And so many, many others. So there's a real tendency, and interesting, that the capitalistic commercial publishing industry is highly subsidized by public money. And I don't know, we as scientists, we don't care. Most of us don't care. We are only interested to have our articles published in a well-known, highly reputation journal, and we want to have free access. And whether the access is guaranteed by the library or by commercial publishers, we don't care. But, I mean, it's not only that the public pays for the production and the dissemination, but there also, in the commercial publishing industry, there's about a 20% gain. I mean, they want to make money. These are private companies. So the public not only finance these production, dissemination, but also their financial prospect. So these are the model, and these are the questions. Is it reasonable, or is it in line with market principles when commercial publishing organizations are subsidized by public institutions? I have my doubts. Or is it more reasonable, which could be possible, that public financial organizations such as libraries or computer science or information science departments which have the competence, they build an open access publishing infrastructure by themselves? Would it be even cheaper for the public if science or libraries do it, or should we spend all the money for commercial publishers? That's an open question. So the final question for the last 10 minutes, maybe this will answer the question, because all this commercial publishing was only possible by a very strong copyright. By strong copyright, I mean a copyright which protects the right holders. And that would be okay if we protect the authors as right holders. But the reality, as I mentioned before, that authors give all their rights away. Not their personal rights, but all their exploitation rights, publishing rights. They give it by contract away to the publishers. And that's the reason why there's a strong lobbying from publishers for a strong copyright, which was originally designed to protect the authors, but now it's more or less a trade right to protect the interest of the publishers. I think there is no need for a copyright in the existing form, because everybody agrees that the existing copyright is really a big crisis. Why is it a crisis? Because copyright, as many laws, they regulate our moral behavior of the past. And so does copyright regulation as well. They mirror moral behavior towards knowledge and information, considered as a private good, and develop an analogous environment. It's no longer appropriate. We have developed a completely different moral behavior towards knowledge and information. I mentioned some: sharing, openness, inclusive, sustainability. And access to published knowledge is still considered an exception, only an exception to the exclusive rights of the right holders. And this is probably not right. I think an enlightening copyright should avoid the term exception and should rather use the term limitation. There are some limitations, not exceptions, limitations to the exclusive right of the right holders, because it's in the public interest to have this limitation, to have that free access and free use. And so because access to knowledge, information is not an exception, but I think it's a right in itself. It's a right in itself. It's not an exception, it's a limitation, and should be a right in itself. Why is there a copyright crisis? I think particularly for science and education, but also for industry, copyright has turned out more disabling means than what is originally be designed for than an enabling one. Copyright should further the progress in science and the liberal and the arts, but it's no longer. It's a business copyright regulation in the interest of exploitation, not of free use. And again, there's a copyright myth. But this is always the argument in all the political discussion that a strong copyright, as I mentioned before, is a right which protects the rights of the right holder, will stimulate creativity in science and will further commercial innovation. That's an argument. But you ask yourself, have you ever published or done any science because you were interested in commercial exploitation? You're creative by intrinsic motivation. You want to further progress. Of course, you're interested in reputation, but not in money. So, if there were any copyright, I'm pretty sure you will keep on producing knowledge and information. So it's a kind of the myth which is always used. We need a strong copyright. Otherwise, there would be no innovation in industry and no creativity in science. And the opposite is true. And there are many empirical studies, and the general message of these studies is the more open a system of copyright limitation, not exception, is, the better creativity and innovation are promoted. There's one from Harhoff and Henkel from 2003, an old one, and it shows very clear that the analysis of innovation processes, they've analyzed innovation processes, has often shown a puzzling phenomenon. Innovating users often do not sell or license innovation to manufacturers. Instead, they freely reveal and make it more available, and so make innovation easier also for other companies. And also, enterprises don't patent their inventions because they give it open for other companies. Maybe they make a product cheaper out of their patents, so make it freely available, and the chances for innovation increases. So the more open, the better creativity. And the other quotation is from a recent article from Christoph Berger from Copyright, and the first paragraph is a myth for strong protection of the authors. And the creator of these strong copyrights is the more incentive to create or to invest in the creation of the new work will exist when too much is taken away. And he claims just the opposite. He argues that in a knowledge-based society, a well-designed limitation, not exception system, can greatly benefit innovation and creativity, and also readjusts the copyright balance in favor of creators, ensuring that they receive their fair share of profits generated by the work. So there are many empirical studies that creativity is more encouraged and innovation is a commercial term, when knowledge and information is freely available, can be used for many purposes. So, the last question: will everything be published in the open access? Yes, and is protected by moral rights, right to decide when and how to publish. And no. Is there a need for copyright? Yes, when there's still strong protection. But no, when a comprehensive community open access, there is no need for exploitation right, no need for contractual licensing, but everything in this open access is freely available. Well, you could think there's no need for copyright. We're talking in science and education, not in the general market. So, another answer to the question, is there still a need for copyright related to science and education? And yes, there is a need. There's still a need for the protection, what the Americans call the moral rights, Persönlichkeit, personality rights. So you have the right to be acknowledged as the author of a piece of work. You have the right that nobody can use their under a different name or misuse it for a purpose which were not intended. So these are the moral rights. So we need a copyright for the moral rights. And also we need a copyright because, as I mentioned, about 90% of all the articles are still in the commercial paradigm. And we need some rules, some limitation, how to use these. And of course, we need also some copyright because there are still some publishers who don't accept the open access and they still publish under the closed access paradigm. So in the foreseeable future, we still need copyright for respect to science and education. And I think the commercial model for the future will not be just the plain publishing that we can do by ourselves. Publishing, we also have to deliver all your manuscript in a final version, and then we also have the right and have the knowledge to disseminate our articles. But the publishing model, the commercial model, will be to add information values, to add values to the original. So I think the future market, which is not publicly subsidized, but is real a market model, would be a model which adds values to the original model. And so there are some examples of future models, commercial model, multimedia presentation, not only text, hypertextification, that means interlinking between other articles, dossiers of related articles, summaries, translation in different languages, retrieval and data mining software, innovative reviewing models, personal and institutional background, and on. So this should be the real chance for commercial publishers to stay on the market, not only by publishing and disseminating, and even not if this is financed by public means. That we can do by ourselves. I think that's the model, sustainable model, what is right now the practice that public institutions are willing to pay commercial companies for their products and for their income they expect. These are shareholder companies. So that's more or less what I want to have to say. And so I think there will be still a need for copyright, and also have a solution how these copyright could see in the future. And therefore we still have to fight for a science education friendly copyright, a copyright which allows us to turn the resource, knowledge, information into a free, usable commons. Knowledge and information commons, which will be freely accessible and freely usable. The existing copyright doesn't allow us to do, and still in the European context there's a movement that they have a chance to renew the existing copyright. So there are many more open questions than answers, but I hope some of the things were quite understandable for you, although this whole field of copyright and publishing is probably not your home field, but this really the field where it is decided how we can use knowledge information in science education in the future. So that's it. Thank you very much.